this is part of the trend to try and quantify everything.
Yep.
In terms of, there's lots of startups around the world trying to quantify your health, trying to quantify your well-being, your business,
Yep.
Transport, all that kind of stuff. This is trying to quantify the success factors of early-stage companies.
It's kind of, it's almost that essence or something.
Yeah.
It's hard to capture. Yeah.
Yeah. So younger entrepreneurs, there's this increasing demand to cut away the art and the luck side and understand what are the fundamentals.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurship traditionally has been you're born with it. It's not learnt. It's just all art and mystical. Whereas the younger generation were like, well, yeah, I understand that, but what's the other 80-90% that I can understand?
Because there must be real world steps.
Yeah, exactly. So what the Startup Gnome project did is they surveyed 663 startups, and they only selected internet startups. So there is a bit of bias in here, but I think the learnings are quite relevant. And they just wanted to understand how they went through the 4 stages of a startup, from validation to testing the market to scale, and then looking at profit, and then refreshing.
Okay.
So they just want to focus on the first 4 that were very discrete, because it's hard to analyse profit maximisation and refreshing the business, which is what you do about 10 years down the track in your first round.
Yeah.
So quite interesting, some of the findings. Like, first one was, founders that learn are more successful. Startups that have helpful mentors, track metrics effectively, and learn from startup thought leaders raise 7 times more money and have 3.5 times better user growth.
So that is people that actually seek advice.
Yeah, so that go, I don't know enough about this, I need some help with it.
Yeah.
And then, they'll have a portfolio of mentors.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting. Like, they raise 7 times more money, which means that more people want to get behind them. And they grow 3.5 times faster.
Okay.
That's incredible. So, like, really, really basic. If you're thinking about getting a mentor, this can kind of validate it.
Don't go alone.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, in business, you are going to stumble. You may as well learn from someone that can help pick you up really fast.
Yeah.
The second one was, startups that pivot once or twice raise 2.5 times more money and have 3.6 times better user growth, and are 52% less likely to scale prematurely than startups that pivot more than 2 times or not at all. So it's a bit of a mouthful there, but a pivot in a company is where you basically change direction midstream. You get the company to a point where you decide, look, this isn't going to work, it's not going to scale, the market isn't responding, or the model doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
So you stop, pivot, and then change direction. And that's an incredible thing to do. And so what they're saying is that startups that go on the journey and they pivot or change direction once or twice, they end up raising more money, have better growth, and they're less likely to try and grow real quick in terms of try and force the growth rather than find a model that works.
Right.
And that's one of the key learnings of the Gnome project, is that companies that work a little bit harder to get a model that works on a small scale get better growth down the track, whereas people that try and rush the growth on their current model without getting the numbers working right tend to lose that scale down the track.
Kind of peaking too early, really, in the business.
And it's just, and this is often a fallacy which I see quite a bit, that once we get to $1 billion, we'll have tons of profit. But if you're a small business at $1 million, you should be making some good, healthy profit there.
Right.
If you're not, you should understand why, and will that cost go away? Because their findings say that you're not going to get those profits down the line.
Yeah.
And we see that quite a bit, and it's not just New Zealand, but all around the world. A whole lot of businesses in kind of the $5 to $15 million range, which actually make very little or no profit. The third one was, many investors invest 2 to 3 times more capital than necessary that haven't reached a problem solution fit yet. They also over-invest in solo founders and founding teams without technical co-founders, despite indicators that show that these teams have a much lower probability of success. So, and this is one of the findings that is a bit biased to internet startups, but I think it applies across most industries in terms of you need to have a founder or a senior person who's there from the start, like a number 2, who is either like the technical side of the industry that you're in, or the leader has to be. And so you need to match that kind of that technical skill with the business side.
Right.
And when you can get those two working together, it works quite well.
And obviously you have to be both very passionate
Yeah.
individuals.
So you have to be very passionate, but if you have one without the other, this study shows that you find it much, much harder to grow.
Okay.
Investors who provide hands-on help have little or no effect on the company's operational performance. So if you're looking at angel investors, they don't necessarily have to help day to day. You just kind of want them for more strategic direction. They can help down the track when you're looking at exits. The next one is, and this is quite profound really, solo founders take 3.6 times longer to reach scale stage compared to a founding team of 2, and they're 2.3 times less likely to pivot. That is, if you start by yourself, it's going to take you 3.6 times longer to get to the same point if you started with someone else. So if you imagine it's going to take you 18 months to get your business where you need it to go,
Yeah.
if you had a business partner would be much quicker.
But it's oh so satisfying to do it yourself.
It is, but it's much more enjoyable if you get someone along the ride, and much less stressful. And I found that with growing Young and Shand, when Duncan and I first started working together, it meant I could say, look, today can you handle the business development? I'm going to crack on delivering these projects, or vice versa. When there were projects here to drive, I could do the opposite.
Yeah.
And it speeds up decision making because there's someone to talk to right then and there, and you can reach a solution straight away. Whereas when you have to rely on a whole lot of external people, it can take a few days to reach a conclusion that you could have reached much quicker.
Shouldered crown as well.
Yeah, it's quite good.
Should it be required?
Yeah. So that's the other thing. Any problem is shared.
Yeah.
That's like most partnerships, right?
Yeah.
Balanced teams with one technical founder and one business founder raise 30% more money, have 2.9 times more user growth, and they're 19% less likely to scale prematurely. So again, coming back to that balanced team, it just shows, and the numbers show from these 663 startups, that you have a more balanced approach to growth and to business decisions, so that you do grow at the right time. You do get that model right. I think when there's just one person, you can kind of get stuck in your own mind. When there's two people, there's someone else to bring you back to reality, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Most successful founders are driven by impact rather than experience or money, and this is a big myth, really, that people expect all entrepreneurs are driven by the money to live like Kim Kardashian.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. But most entrepreneurs that I meet are mainly driven by, they want to make some change, they're really passionate about something, and
the money's secondary, right?
Yeah, the money's secondary. It is a measure of success. But if they're driven by money, they wouldn't be doing it because they've had to work 3 or 4 years, 12, 16 hours a day, some of them broken families.
And that really gets back to the passion aspect of it as well.
Yeah, just like pushing yourself through and just doing it. And also, this is noted quite a bit locally, the entrepreneurs that are quite successful here, the first thing they want to do is give back. So just about every successful entrepreneur that's been in the headlines the last few years either has a fund, or they're trying to invest in other startups, or they're mentoring. So typically they are very generous in wanting to help other people.
Yeah.
And if you want their help, just ask them for it. And I'll just do one last one. B2C versus B2B is not a meaningful segmentation of internet startups anymore, because the internet has changed the rules of business. So the interesting thing here is that 20 years ago, B2C and B2B, that is business to consumer or business to business, operated fundamentally differently.
They did, didn't they?
Yeah.
They were often two different wings of a business.
Yeah. But now that's blurred quite a bit, just because of the delivery channels have consolidated in terms of delivering service via the browser, being found in search, email, that kind of stuff.
Well,
so yeah,
cool.
Quite a lot. They're all very interesting. If you want to look it up, just search for the Startup Gnome Project, or send me tweet on Twitter and I'll flick you a copy of the PDF. Really, really good. Tons of advice, and the great thing about this is first stab. 5 years down the track, they're going to be fairly well quantified in terms of in the first year you need to do this, in the second year you need to do this.
Brilliant. What a great resource, the Startup Gnome. Yes, and that Twitter address, twitter.com/BWAGY, BWAGY.com. Thanks very much, Ben Young.
Cheers.